In a world where one wrong step means instant death, our story begins inside a high-security predator enclosure. Danger lurks behind the heavy iron bars, warned by a stark sign reminding everyone to beware of wild predators. Fearlessly stepping into the danger zone is our brown-haired zookeeper, armed with nothing but a cleaning mop. She considers herself incredibly lucky to temporarily take over the predator exhibit while her senior colleague is away on break. Far from being terrified, she's actually an absolute superfan of these majestic meat-eating beasts. To her, untamed wild cats and wolves represent the ultimate standard of beauty in the natural world. She happily breaks into a cheerful song and dance as she sweeps the dusty floors of the enclosure. As she enjoys her dream job, a massive dark shadow silently creeps up from behind. Suddenly, a bright cosmic anomaly streaks across the night sky, signaling an impending twist of fate. Disaster strikes in a flash as a giant black panther with glowing yellow eyes leaps out to attack her. She slowly regains consciousness in a daze, only to find herself surrounded by a thick, unfamiliar forest canopy. Looking around, she quickly notes that these towering trees are completely different from any safari park she knows. When she tries to reach for her phone, she is shocked to see a massive black feathered wing instead. A wave of absolute panic hits her as she hears the rustling sound of feathers flapping nearby. Looking down, she is horrified to see a pair of sharp, scaly black talons and a dark beak. She lets out a frantic screech as she realizes her entire human body has completely vanished. Desperate to see what has happened, she rushes toward a nearby flowing stream for answers. Looking at her reflection in the clear water, she confirms her worst nightmare. She is transformed into a black crow. Her beak trembles in silent disbelief as she struggles to accept this bizarre feathered reality. She unleashes a massive, desperate scream of anguish that echoes through the entire forest. She bitterly complains about her luck, noting how others reincarnate as gorgeous noblewomen in romance novels. If she had to become an animal, she desperately wishes she could have at least been a cool predator. She laments being a common, unlucky crow instead of a majestic black wolf with glowing golden eyes. In her mind, she imagines doctors confirming that she has possessed one of the worst possible bodies. She sheds literal tears of despair, utterly devastated by her tragic transformation into a common bird. Left with no other choice, she must now figure out how to survive in this wild jungle. Her stomach churns as she reviews a crow's dreadful diet of insects, bugs, and decaying carcasses. Furious at her fate, she imagines violently packing the eyes out of whichever god orchestrated this reincarnation. At least she can eat fruits and nuts, though she cannot find any growing in this immediate area. Spreading her dark wings, she decides to take a leap of faith into the sky. Soaring high above the endless green forest canopy, she is instantly thrilled by the sheer sensation of flight. Her brief moment of freedom is cut short when she suddenly overhears voices speaking down below. Peering through the dense foliage, she listens to several voices frantically searching for someone in the bushes. She freezes in midair, utterly shocked to discover that there are actually other humans in this forest. A brilliant plan forms in her mind. If she can charm a handsome noble, she can live a luxurious life as a pet. She immediately dives down through the branches, eager to put her charm offensive into action. Her hopes are instantly crushed when she comes face to face with two terrifying green-skinned orcs. She sinks into instant depression, realizing there are absolutely no hopes or dreams left in this world. The hostile orcs grumble about their search, completely ignoring the tiny crying crow flying above them. Flying at a safe distance, she carefully listens to their speech to gather clues about her location. The presence of these green monsters confirms beyond a doubt that she is reincarnated into a true fantasy world. However, she remains unsure whether this world is based on a fantasy novel, a manhwa, or a game. She tries to recall the countless fantasy stories and modern games she played back in her human life. She watches closely as the three green-skinned orcs angrily plot to capture and consume a human target. Realizing a skilled human must be nearby, she decides to use this to her advantage. She knows she must locate this mysterious human before the bloodthirsty monsters do. If she can warn or help them in time, she might just win their favor and secure a comfortable home. Suddenly, a glowing star of bright yellow light sparkles through the dark green trees. Her sharp purple eyes instantly lock onto a stunning blonde-haired man hiding quietly in the brush. There he is, a severely injured blonde-haired man in a dark blue cape holding his bleeding side beneath a tree. Gasping desperately for air, the severely wounded blonde-haired prince struggles to keep his fading consciousness intact. He curses under his breath, realizing his body's rapidly reaching its absolute limits. He bitterly regrets letting his guard down and falling so easily into such a ruthless trap. He realizes accepting Count Fallon's hunting invitation was the fatal mistake that triggered this disaster. He suspects his rival Llewellyn planned this ambush and laments his failure to awaken his divine powers. Preparing himself for a grim end, his eyes suddenly lock onto a mysterious black crow watching him from a branch. The purple-eyed crow is absolutely stunned to realize this famous handsome noble is bleeding right before her. The prince tenses up as he hears the strange rustling sounds of the bird hovering nearby. He warily stares at the dark bird, recognizing the classic omen of bad luck. To him, crows are nothing but battlefield scavengers and chilling symbols of impending death. He suspects the ominous bird is patiently hovering nearby just to feast on his dead corpse. Though he desperately wants to chase the unlucky creature away, his body is too weak to move. He worries that taking any action will make noise and alert the bloodthirsty orcs nearby. He tries to remain perfectly silent, but the noisy bird suddenly shatters the quiet forest with a loud cry. The crow continues to caw relentlessly, completely ignoring his desperate need for silence. Furious and panicked, the prince silently curses the bird, wishing it would just shut its mouth. Suddenly, the black bird takes off into the sky, creating a massive distraction. He is left utterly bewildered as the loud cawing sounds rapidly fade into the distance. Hearing the loud cries, the gullible green-skinned orcs assume a fresh corpse must be nearby and change direction. Grabbing his bleeding side, the prince uses this golden opportunity to escape into the thick foliage. He lets out a relieved sigh as he realizes the hostile monsters have taken the bait. Watching them run, the prince finally realizes the clever crow was actually trying to save his life. Flying high above, the crow smugly celebrates her success in luring the foolish monsters away. She looks back toward the forest, her thoughts returning to the beautiful noble she left behind. She tries to recall if his stunning face belongs to a specific character from her past games. She resolves to keep the mysterious man alive, recognizing him as her golden ticket to luxury. She hilariously tries to convince herself that she is helping him purely for survival, not his looks. Leading them deeper into the wild, she keeps the confused monsters following her tail. She flies over a massive sheer cliff, leaving the angry orcs completely stranded at the edge. She mockingly laughs at the frustrated monsters as they finally decide to abandon their useless search. With the threat neutralized, she quickly flies back to locate the injured prince. She suddenly spots a fresh trail of blood staining the vibrant green grass. She is deeply alarmed to see just how much blood the prince has lost. Realizing the severe blood loss is more dangerous than the orcs, she knows she must act immediately. She decides her top priority is to find medicinal herbs to stop his excessive bleeding. She sweat drops, realizing that while she knows animals, she is definitely no expert on plants. Relying on her new crow instincts, she hopes the edible grass she finds will work on humans. Shaking her head, she casts aside her doubts and decides to gather the plants first. With his life on the line, she flies off to find the cure before it is too late. The scene shifts to a pristine glowing blue stream flowing quietly through the forest canopy. The crystal clear water ripples gently, offering a peaceful sanctuary amidst the chaos. The exhausted prince finally crouches by the water, removing his shirt to treat his wounds. He is deeply relieved to have found a clean water source to wash away his injuries. He knows the running water will wash away his blood scent and prevent the monsters from tracking him. He stares quietly into the clear water, reflecting on his incredibly narrow escape from death. He ponders the strange reality of a common crow deliberately guiding his enemies away. He knows with absolute certainty that he would have died if the bird had not intervened. His muscular back glimmers under the soft forest light as he finishes cleaning himself. Standing tall, he resolves to find a way to survive on his own without relying on luck. He is suddenly left completely speechless when he reaches up and finds a pile of healing leaves placed neatly on his head. The wounded prince stares in disbelief at the fresh healing leaves placed directly onto his head, questioning if they are meant to stop his bleeding. Looking up at the forest canopy, he immediately rejects the impossible idea that a mere forest creature could have done this. High on a leafy branch, the purple-eyed black crow flaps her wings and happily caws, watching her plan unfold. As he wraps himself in his blue cape, the shirtless prince stares at the bird in complete disbelief, unable to process this absurd situation. He narrows his golden eyes, intensely studying the creature and concluding that no ordinary bird could possibly possess such human-like intelligence. His mind races through magical possibilities, wondering if the crow is a mage's familiar, a hybrid beast, or even a shape-shifted dragon. He thoughtfully strokes his chin, analyzing the three potential explanations for this bizarre encounter. Drying his muscular chest, he realizes none of his loyal allies possess such a familiar, leaving him deeply puzzled. He tightly binds his bleeding torso with white bandages, doubting that a proud dragon would ever deign to assist a human in need. Slipping his black jacket back on, his suspicious gaze locks onto the glowing crow, questioning her true motives for helping him. Suddenly, a pair of bright red forest berries plop gently onto the soft grass below. The helpful crow swoops down and caws loudly, presenting the fresh, glowing fruit right at his feet. The prince warily examines the offering, suspecting the strange bird might actually be trying to poison or bait him. Sensing his doubt, the enthusiastic crow flaps her wings and chirps cheerfully, surrounded by a warm, friendly aura. The prince's eyes widen as he realizes the highly intelligent bird is actively communicating and seems to understand his exact words. Overcoming his hesitation, his hand reaches down toward the glowing red berries resting on the forest floor. He pops a berry into his mouth, cautiously tasting the sweet wild fruit to test its effects. A brilliant, warm smile spreads across his face as the delicious fruit immediately revitalizes his exhausted body. This unexpected trust marks the beginning of an incredibly bizarre yet heartwarming partnership in the depths of the wild jungle. Their strange cohabitation is full of teamwork, with the clever crow constantly gathering fresh herbs and warning him of nearby roaring bears. In return, the grateful prince cooks fresh fish over a crackling campfire, happily sharing his daily catch with his feathered companion. The crow sheds tears of pure joy while devouring the delicious roasted fish, celebrating her escape from a dreadful diet of insects. Flying high above their cozy cave hideout, she looks back at her handsome companion, proud of how well they support each other. Suddenly, a passionate shout echoes through the green forest canopy as the prince calls out a new name. With a radiant smile and a gentle, outstretched hand, he officially names his precious savior Reinel. Reinel lands gracefully on his arm, deeply touched by the beautiful name he has gifted her. She reflects on how his cold, guarded expression is completely melted into a soft, loving gaze whenever he looks at her. Her heart flutters wildly as she hilariously compares the handsome noble to a sparkling idol calling out to his biggest fan. Blushing furiously, she swoons over his breathtaking good looks, silently declaring that his deadly charm is practically a crime. She is startled as his warm hand gently touches her head, momentarily trying to resist the affection. All resistance instantly crumbles as her face hilariously melts under his incredibly comforting pats. The prince chuckles softly, teasing the melting crow about how much he secretly loves being petted. He gazes into the distance, bitterly recalling how the manipulative nobles back home only sought to betray and exploit him. Yet, this tiny black bird has brought his troubled heart a rare, refreshing sense of peace and safety. He cradles the sleeping Rhinel close to his chest, treasuring this quiet moment of pure comfort. However, a heavy shadow falls over his face as he realizes he cannot remain hidden in this peaceful forest forever. He remembers the heavy sacrifice of his fallen knights and the suffering of his people under the cruel tyranny of his rival Llewellyn. He knows his ultimate destiny lies back within the golden walls of the Grand Imperial Palace. Yet returning unprepared is a death sentence, as his enemies have likely already declared him dead to usurp his rightful throne. Looking out at the vast wilderness, he determines that his only path to victory is to finally awaken his dormant imperial powers. To reclaim his throne, he must unlock the legendary royal bloodline trait, the divine power to shapeshift into a mighty wolf. As sunset paints the sky in shades of orange, a new resolve settles over the dangerous journey ahead. Meanwhile, Rhinel flies across the twilight sky, eager to gather more healing herbs before darkness completely blankets the forest. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light amidst the dark green canopy catches her sharp purple eyes. Peering through the dense leaves, she is captivated by a mysterious sparkling blue crystal jewel hidden in the brush. She initially decides to ignore the useless gem to continue her search for food, but her animal instincts suddenly take full control. Her eyes bulge in horror as she realizes her internal bird brain is about to override her human logic. Screeching in vain, she helplessly dives straight toward the shiny, irresistible object like a homing missile. Rolling on the grass, she frantically plays with the blue jewel, screaming in pure shame as her inner crow completely ruins her human dignity. Clutching the sparkling crystal tightly, she silently freezes as a wave of familiarity hits her, realizing she has seen this powerful artifact before. A sudden flash of lightning strikes as she finally recalls a crucial memory from her past. She stares at the glowing blue crystal, realizing it is a legendary item. She remembers playing an Otome game where this crystal decided the ultimate ending. Giving the crystal to the wrong character would result in instant death and imprisonment. She vividly recalls her past frustration over constantly getting the worst game over ending. She cannot believe she forgot about this ridiculously difficult game until this exact moment. The frustrated crow cries out in despair over her terrible fate. She furiously curses the god who reincarnated her into this unforgiving game world. Suddenly, she realizes the injured man she saved is actually a main character. He is Prince Karmut, the crown prince of the mighty Bullfrick Empire. She realizes she has arrived at the dark beginning of the prince's tragic journey. The anxious crow sweats profusely, realizing the immense weight of the situation. She looks at the glowing blue crystal, knowing it holds the prince's awakening. Grabbing the crystal with her talons, she prepares to change history. The blonde prince is absolutely stunned when she drops the glowing gem before him. He questions her true identity while the proud crow demands some well-deserved praise. He narrows his golden eyes, deeply contemplating the incredible risk of using the crystal. He knows consuming its immense power could easily result in his immediate death. Holding his breath, the prince stares at the divine artifact in his hand. He looks up at the sky, bracing himself to face his ultimate destiny. Bird tenses up as the prince calls out her name in a quiet voice. He smiles gently and tells her to live freely if he does not survive. Without hesitation, the determined prince swallows the legendary crystal to trigger his awakening. The shocked crow watches as a massive burst of golden energy explodes around him. A blinding pillar of golden light engulfs the prince as his dormant powers activate. Golden flames radiate from his body, casting a divine glow across the entire forest. The flustered crow hilariously imagines the incredibly attractive side effects of his completed awakening. He is instantly overwhelmed by the sheer influx of pure raw magical power. The massive surge of energy sends wildlife fleeing in terror across the night sky. A heavy shadow suddenly falls over the distracted, nervous crow. The immense magical surge unleashes hostile red-eyed wolf monsters straight to their location. The panicked crow screams at the monsters for interrupting a crucial transformation sequence. She briefly contemplates abandoning him to escape the approaching pack of beasts. She is suddenly stopped by the memory of his gentle, final parting words to her. Frustrated by her own loyalty, she curses him for making her care so much. The brave crow heroically flies directly at the monsters to buy him precious time. A massive explosion of golden shockwaves erupts, shaking the very foundations of the forest. The prince groans in agonizing pain as the awakening process tears through his body. Golden veins crackle across his skin as his eyes turn a blinding white. The intense physical transformation reaches its peak as golden lightning surges through his eyes. He grits his teeth, resolved to endure the intense suffering to unlock his true power. He bitterly recalls the tragic moment his loyal knights urged him to run away. He remembers their final sacrifice as they acted as bait to ensure his survival. The painful memory of their desperate pleas fuels his burning desire to survive. He swears to live on and prove that their ultimate sacrifices were not in vain. The prince lets out a powerful scream as the divine golden lightning completely consumes him. The ancient legacy of the gods begins to stir within his royal bloodline. The dormant beast soul of the legendary imperial family begins to rapidly take form. Blinding streams of golden energy swirl together to construct a massive spectral beast. A majestic golden wolf emerges, unleashing a ferocious roar that echoes across the wild. A blinding explosion of golden energy erupts as the royal beast soul awakens. A massive pillar of golden light pierces the sky, shaking the forest. The majestic golden wolf stands ready to obliterate the invading monster horde. Exhausted and severely wounded, the brave crow struggles to stay conscious. With his divine royal transformation complete, the legendary wolf prepares to strike. With a single powerful swipe of his golden claws, he decimates the beasts. Her strength completely spent, the heroic crow begins to fall from the sky. Reverting to his human form, the panicked prince catches his falling savior. Cradling her broken body, the heartbroken prince regrets that she got hurt. He realizes with deep emotion that this tiny bird risked everything for him. He blames himself, knowing she would be safe if she hadn't protected him. A quiet, solemn peace washes over the forest as the scene transitions. He looks down with profound tenderness, determined to heal her messy feathers. Carrying her gently, he begins walking out of the dangerous jungle. He promises her a swift recovery as they leave the wild forest behind. They transition from the harsh wilderness to a place of safety and healing. Inside his quarters, the prince commands a hooded priest to save his bird. Enveloped in warm, glowing blue magic, the injured bird begins to heal. Reinel suddenly opens her eyes, startled by the strange, soothing magic. Waking up in a panic, she squawks loudly and searches for the prince. She ignores the priest and desperately calls out for Carmute as she flies. Hearing her frantic cries, the prince smiles warmly and prepares to comfort her. He gently pulls her close to his face, softly calming her down. Cradling her gently in his hands, he warmly reassures her that she is safe. The quirky priest complains about the absurdity of using high-tier magic on a bird. Reinel sweats nervously, realizing she just received an incredibly luxurious healing treatment. Completely energized, she marvels at the incredible pain-relieving effects of the divine magic. The priest bows out, leaving Reinel to contemplate living in a fantasy world. The prince looks down at her with a gentle, deeply affectionate gaze. He breathes a massive sigh of relief, thanking the heavens that she survived. He nuzzles her affectionately against his cheek, overflowing with pure relief and gratitude. His emotional hug becomes so tight that it comically catches the crow off guard. Her inner fangirl completely explodes from the sheer intensity of his handsome embrace. She comically wonders if his overwhelming charm is a secret weapon to end her. She internally screams that no single lady could survive this level of fan service. Her brain completely short-circuits as she comically begs for mercy from his looks. She laments her cruel fate, crying over the tragedy of being a bird. A sudden wave of jealousy hits her as she considers his future marriage. She comically vows that if she stays single, everyone else should too. She erupts into a furious squawk, passionately declaring war on all romantic couples. Mistaking her romantic panic for physical discomfort, the prince gently loosens his grip. He apologizes with a soft smile, promising to hug her more gently. She concludes her chaotic life would make the perfect fantasy webtoon. The prince admits his extreme worry caused him to channel too much magic. Reflects on how his entire life was saved solely by her bravery. He recalls all the times the small bird gathered herbs for him. Thanks to her finding the crystal, he finally unlocked his royal power. The supreme power of the golden wolf is now his to command. Overflowing with gratitude, the prince happily cradles his tiny feathered savior. He makes a solemn, heartfelt vow that he will never neglect her again. Blushing intensely, the crow struggles to keep her human logic intact. Perching on the prince's shoulder, she comically complains that her bird existence is a total joke. The handsome prince remains perfectly composed among delicate white flowers. Carmute laughs softly, asking if his feathered companion will forgive his tight embrace. The possessive crow erupts in fiery jealousy, warning everyone to stay away from her prince. A sharp knock on the wooden door breaks their sweet privacy, requesting entrance. Tense silence falls over the room as a visitor steps inside. The orange-haired knight Galenos salutes respectfully, introducing himself to the prince. Deeply emotional, Galenos expresses his sincere gratitude that the crown prince is safe. Carmute greets his loyal knight, apologizing for causing such sudden worry. Reinel freezes in absolute shock as she recognizes the knight's face. Her game memories reveal his legendary identity as Winster del Galenos. She recalls that this knight was one of the game's capture targets. She frantically racks her brains, struggling to remember his specific character traits. Galenos apologizes for his late arrival, reiterating his duty as a royal knight. Overwhelmed with guilt, Galenos kneels and labels himself a sinner for failing as prince. In a terrifying display of devotion, the knight prepares to end his life. Both the prince and the crow are completely dumbfounded by this escalation. Reinel internally screams, refusing to let such a handsome knight die in vain. Dramatic crow loses her mind in comedic disbelief over this chaotic melodrama. Moving like absolute lightning, Carmute reaches out to stop the blade. With a powerful, swift movement, the prince disarms his loyal knight. Galenos looks up in pure surprise as his sword is snatched away. The knight's blade spins wildly through the air after the forceful impact. The discarded sword clatters harmlessly onto the floor, diffusing the deadly tension. Reinel sighs in exhaustion, completely drained by the sudden burst of drama. Carmute gently chides his knight, reminding him that extreme loyalty has limits. The quirky crow silently cheers, thrilled that the handsome knight's life was spared. Still sweating with desperation, Galenos tries to argue his deep-seated remorse. Karmut reassures his knight, explaining he was away serving on an imperial mission. The prince speaks calmly, lifting the heavy burden of regret from Galenos. In a touching display of royal grace, Karmut reaches out to his knight. Galenos looks up with profound reverence, deeply touched by his master's kindness. Karmut commands Galenos to become his trusted sword and protect him always. Stunned by the prince's absolute trust, the loyal knight hesitates in shock. Karmut waits calmly, holding out his hand for the knight's final decision. The discarded blade rests on the floor, waiting to seal their vow. Taking up the blade, Galenos kneels and prepares to pledge his life. A solemn vow begins, carrying the immense weight of their unbreakable bond. Crow watches closely as she suddenly recalls a vital piece of lore. Karmut smiles warmly, fully prepared to face their shared destiny together. Galenos touches the blade to his forehead, swearing to protect him always. The prince expresses his heartfelt gratitude toward his loyal, unwavering companion. Kneeling before his master, Galenos seals his vow of absolute, eternal devotion. Reinel flaps her wings, questioning why he hides his newly awakened power. The scene transitions as the knight calls out from near the window. Galenos politely asks how the injured prince managed to return home safely. Sitting at his desk, Karmut listens as his knight voices his concerns. The prince smiles warmly, turning to introduce his tiny feathered savior. Karmut extends his hand, inviting Reinel to meet his trusted companion. The stakes have never been higher as the newly awakened prince cradles his feathered savior, who silently wonders if he called for her. Galenos watches in sheer bewilderment, struggling to comprehend why the prince is so attached to a common crow. Memories flash back to the wilderness, reminding them of the deep bond forged during their desperate struggle for survival. The loyal knight internally questions why his master would harbor such an ominous bird. Sensing his companion's deep skepticism, Karmut calmly addresses Galenos to dispel his lingering doubts. He explains how the clever crow repeatedly saved his life, while Reinel proudly basks in the praise. Karmut solemnly declares that his survival was entirely thanks to this remarkable bird, leaving the knight speechless. The narrative shifts to the heavy burden of royalty, depicting a flawless prince who never shows weakness. Yet the shadow of the treacherous third prince Llewellyn looms, threatening to destroy everything Karmut has built. Galenos is struck with profound awe as he realizes the sheer benevolence of his master. He witnesses the prince offering a rare, genuine smile solely to his tiny avian companion. The sheer absurdity of the situation leaves the loyal knight sweating in comedic disbelief. Sudden realization hits Galenos like a lightning bolt, shifting his entire perspective on the prince's actions. He swears to match this level of grand devotion, igniting his spirit to serve his master with absolute fervor. Overflowing with newfound determination, the knight vows to overcome all personal prejudices and fight to the death. Shifting to serious matters, Karmut commands his knight to report on the empire's current political climate. Galenos promptly asks if the inquiry concerns the chaotic aftermath of the crown prince's sudden disappearance. He confirms that while the fallen knights were recovered, those responsible have completely vanished without a trace. Search party's efforts yield grim results, hinting at a darker conspiracy in the depths of the forest. Karmut realizes with grim certainty that his ruthless brother Llewellyn is behind this horrific slaughter. He recalls Llewellyn's masterfully played hypocrisy, pretending to mourn while plotting his downfall. The deceptive prince had even used his fabricated grief to manipulate the emperor himself. Karmut smirks coldly, planning to use his brother's own deceptive schemes against him. Galenos warns that the emperor has already issued a direct order, complicating their next move. Reinel sweats nervously, completely overwhelmed by the bloody reality of royal power struggles. She realizes she has been thrust right into the heart of a high-stakes imperial war. The narrative emphasizes the absolute authority of the emperor, the most powerful figure in the land. The blood-stained throne room serves as a chilling reminder of the deadly price of royal ambition. Full of empathy, Reinel silently comforts Karmut, recognizing the immense suffering he has endured. Touched by her unwavering presence, the prince softly calls out her name. He gently cradles her, finding solace in the midst of the looming political storm. His gentle caresses soothe her, solidifying their unbreakable bond of trust. The tense atmosphere erupts as Karmut slams his hand down, prompting a worried warning from Galenos about the third prince. Karmut assures them he has his own tricks prepared, though he chooses to bide his time for now. He plans to maintain a public facade, forcing his brother to keep up his hypocritical act. The prince decides to wait patiently, completely unbothered by any impending open attacks. A fierce, radiant power crackles in the air as his golden wolf bloodline stirs. Peering through golden leaves, his piercing yellow eyes promise absolute retribution to his enemies. The scene transitions to the outside world, where sunlight filters through the peaceful canopy. Clear blue skies and bright sunlight signal their departure from the dark forest. Perched high, Reinel watches the grand carriages and bustling servants outside. She gasps in awe as she finally lays eyes on the majestic structure ahead. She realizes they are heading directly to the legendary imperial palace from her game memories. A massive gilded palace stands before them, glistening with unmatched grandeur and power. However, dread washes over her as she remembers this beautiful place is crawling with Karmut's deadliest enemies. She sighs in relief, glad she isn't human right now, knowing a human companion would only cause trouble for Karmut. She imagines the harsh hostility of the court, demanding to know where the prince found a suspicious outsider. She visualizes the severe gossip about the prince bringing home an unknown mysterious woman. She realizes such a woman would immediately be exploited or taken hostage in this political minefield. Reinel concludes that remaining as the prince's unusual pet is her safest choice for now, but will this fragile peace last? The journey to the Imperial Den of Vipers begins as Carnute tracks down his clever avian savior. He gently scoops up the tiny crow, informing her that they must depart immediately. To her absolute shock, the prince shuts her inside a golden transport cage. Reinel is left completely stunned, struggling to comprehend this sudden confinement. Carmute apologetically pleads with her to endure the cage until they reach the capital. Shocking realization of being treated like a pet hits the proud crow. Reinel is outraged, demanding to know why she has been locked up like an animal. The dramatic crow shrieks in betrayal, naming the prince an absolute traitor. A heavy carriage rattles forward, carrying them away from the forest and toward the palace. Stuck in the cage, Reinel recalls her past life working as a zookeeper. She remembers using cages back then to safely transport dangerous wild animals. She recollects the chaotic struggles of subduing furious beasts back in her human days. She laments the cruel irony of now being the wild animal trapped inside. The captive crow screams in frustration, furious that she cannot break free. Carmute refuses his servant's help, insisting on carrying the rattling cage himself. Extreme motion sickness hits Reinel as the heavy carriage violently shakes. Her vision spins completely out of control as the bumpy ride continues. The miserable crow feels on the verge of vomiting from the intense nausea. Night falls over the carriage as they proceed deeper into the dark territory. Finally, a gentle hand unlatches the cage door to release her. Carmute peers inside with deep concern, asking if his precious companion is all right. The prince apologizes profusely, noticing her dizzy state and realizing he pushed her too hard. Reinel's eyes flare with irritation as her strength returns. She glares at him, venting her immense frustration over his belated concern. Seeking immediate revenge, the feisty crow chomps down hard on his hand. Carmute playfully dangles the raging bird upside down, entirely unfazed by her tiny temper tantrum. He gently strokes her head, teasingly asking if she is still angry with him. Reinel tries to resist the incredibly soothing pets, determined not to be bribed so easily. Carmute expresses his deepest, most sincere regrets for putting her through such an ordeal. He softly confesses that he simply could not bear the thought of leaving her behind. Cradling her close, the weary prince seeks comfort in her silent, steady presence. Reinel gazes back, sensing the immense emotional burden weighing on his shoulders. The prince gently declares that her mysterious identity no longer matters to him. He asserts that whether she is a divine beast or something more, he only cares that she is beside him. The intimate atmosphere thickens. In a moment of pure tender devotion, Carmute leans in and kisses her beak. Reinel's mind completely shorts out as she struggles to process what just happened. The shocked crow panics and trembles, screaming over the reality of the kiss. Her eyes widen in absolute bewilderment, completely paralyzed by his sudden display of affection. The dramatic bird loses her mind, screaming in comedic denial over this unbelievable turn of events. Shifting back to reality, Carmute notes the perilous path ahead, knowing the palace is crawling with enemies. He contemplates the exhausting vigilance required to survive the court's relentless traps and betrayals. In a soft, vulnerable confession, he reveals that Reinel is the only one he truly trusts. Touched by his raw honesty, the bashful crow shyly hides behind her feathers. She stares at him with newfound clarity, understanding the depth of his isolation. The two share a quiet, beautiful moment of mutual trust amidst the looming political storm. Reinel realizes that being a crow has allowed her to see a side of him no human ever could. Flapping her wings, she silently vows to protect her beloved prince at any cost. Though she is just a tiny bird, she resolves to be his ultimate protector. Surrounded by a warm magical aura, the prince and his loyal savior stand ready to face their shared destiny. A tender moment of vulnerability breaks through the prince's heavy royal burden as Carmute warmly thanks his loyal companion Reinel for her silent understanding. Reinel panics internally as her face burns with intense embarrassment, relieved that her crow feathers hide her blushing cheeks. Bright skies and blooming flowers signal a fresh start as they arrive at their destination. The towering grand spires of the imperial palace come into view, gleaming in the sunlight. The royal carriage finally halts before the massive entrance of the breathtaking imperial palace. Spotting the luxurious surroundings, the energetic crow cause an absolute delight. They finally step into Carmute's personal quarters, a sanctuary surrounded by beautiful floral decorations. Carmute proudly gestures to his room, eagerly asking Reinel if she likes her grand new surroundings. Surrounded by sparkling treasures, Reinel's avian instincts kick in as she longs to inspect every shiny object. Reinel drools comically as her eyes lock onto the glowing, sparkling fireplace. She remains completely mesmerized, wondering why this room is overflowing with glittering temptations. Realizing she is losing her mind over shiny objects, Reinel quickly slaps her beak to suppress her wild crow instincts. The prince locks the cage door, apologetically explaining that he must leave to attend to urgent royal matters. Carmute strictly warns Reinel to remain quiet in this dangerous palace, and she quickly caws an agreement. Carmute summons his servant Greeting, ordering him to take absolute care of his precious bird while he is away. Bowing deeply, the loyal servant assures his master that his royal orders will be executed flawlessly. An icy, threatening aura suddenly fills the air as Carmute begins a terrifying warning. With piercing yellow eyes, the prince coldly promises severe consequences if the servant dares to mistreat his avian savior. Left trembling in absolute terror, the poor servant sheds comical tears over the prince's terrifying threat. Greeting silently mourns for his own safety, realizing he must now serve a creature he believes to be a harbinger of death. The terrified butler stares at the cage, visualizing a deadly, murderous aura emanating from the harmless little crow. Reinel perks up with curiosity as a hand slides a cover plate into her cage. To keep things reader-friendly, the terrifying wiggly worms on the plate are hilariously decorated as cute, sparkly anime characters. The hilarious censorship text explains that the food has been redesigned to protect the reader's fragile eyes. Reinel stares at the dressed-up bugs in utter horror, completely disgusted by her new meal. Shaking the cage in a wild panic, the outraged crow tries to protest as the butler walks away. Reinel screams in pure, unadulterated hatred at the prospect of eating disgusting worms. Walking down the palace corridor, the prince stops as a faint, desperate screech echoes in the distance. Reinel's dramatic mental pleas for her prince's return resonate through the empty hallway. Karmut smiles softly, admitting that he is already deeply concerned about leaving his fiery little companion alone. The peaceful atmosphere shatters as a fast-paced step approaches, accompanied by a deceptively joyful shout. The treacherous third prince, Llewellyn, appears with a wide, fake smile, loudly celebrating his brother's safe return. Karmut's expression turns ice-cold as he prepares to face his brother's masterfully played hypocrisy. He delivers a calm, collected greeting to Llewellyn, hiding his intense animosity beneath a flawless royal mask. Llewellyn eagerly clasps his brother's hands, pretending to have been utterly devastated by the news of his disappearance. In a tense standoff, Llewellyn delivers a veiled threat, mockingly reminding Karmut of the dangers of lacking awakened powers. Karmut responds with a cold, knowing smirk, completely unfazed by the malicious provocation. The prince towers over his brother, silently dismissing the petty insult as a childish attempt to rattle his composure. Karmut politely apologizes to the court for the small scene, gracefully playing along with his brother's deceptive game. With a charming smile, Karmut confidently declares that he has returned entirely unharmed, contrary to certain expectations. Llewellyn's polite mask cracks, revealing a brief flash of sheer frustration at his brother's survival. Karmut's piercing gaze locks onto his brother, analyzing the traitor's hidden panic. The narrative notes that Llewellyn only enjoys noble backing because he successfully awakened his beast bloodline. Possessing the legendary wolf lineage, the young prince had once shown immense promise to the empire. However, his complacency led him down a path of luxury and total neglect of his powers. Without any effort to improve, he degenerated into a highly arrogant and immature royal. Standing before him, Karmut notes that his brother's magical aura has grown incredibly weak and pathetic. Due to his stagnant powers, Llewellyn's claim to the imperial throne remains highly contested and fragile. Karmut mockingly thanks his brother for sending a search party, feigning deep regret for causing such an unnecessary commotion. Visibly sweating, Llewellyn forces a nervous laugh, desperate to maintain his innocent facade in front of his brilliant older brother. Prince Karmut wears a cold, knowing smile as he decides to make his next move. He bids his brother a tense farewell, promising they will finish their conversation later. Stepping away with royal grace, the blonde prince heads toward his next destination. Karmut silently promises that things are about to get interesting for his brother Llewellyn. The scene shifts to a grand, highly decorated red door within the imperial palace. Armed guards stand vigilant outside the massive chamber doors, maintaining strict palace security. An announcement rings out, formally introducing the arrival of the first prince, Kamut. Kamut enters the room and stands before his bedridden father, the emperor. The sickly emperor acknowledges his son's return, revealing he heard rumors of his disappearance. Kamut asks about his health, but the frail emperor dismisses any hope of recovery. The ruler mockingly tells his son to drop the fake, polite royal greetings. The emperor bitterly insults Kamut, mocking his delayed breakthrough and awakening his powers. The prince gazes down silently at his father, his expression completely unreadable. The bedridden ruler warns him of the betrayal he faces from his own brother. Kamut internally reflects on his swift awakening, contrasting himself with everyone else in court. He coldly thanks his father, noting that being betrayed forced him to awaken. Kamut insults the dying ruler, urging him to stop acting so foolishly now. Holding his father's weak hand, the prince vows to secure the imperial succession. With an icy tone, Kamut suggests the emperor will soon join his late wife. The shocked ruler reacts in silent horror as metaphorical thorns of betrayal close in. Kamut coldly orders his father to remain weak and helpless on his bed. Prince declares that this deadly game of survival will continue to the end. He walks away reflecting on how his mother's tragic death changes destiny. Kamut notes that he might have been gentler had his mother still lived. The blonde prince exits the chamber bathed in a bright, triumphant light. Yellow floral patterns frame his majestic exit as his heavy footsteps echo out. Kamut leaves his father's room behind, striding purposefully down the palace corridor. Back in the quiet chamber, the sickly emperor lies motionless on his bed. A bittersweet chuckle escapes the fading ruler as he contemplates his son's words. The dying emperor surprisingly praises Kamut's ruthless, cutthroat ambition to claim the throne. He looks longingly at a portrait of the late empress, wondering what she would think. Narration reveals that wolves are loyal beasts who mate for life. The beautiful blonde empress had tragically died, leaving her wolf companion entirely devastated. Left behind and brokenhearted, the mourning emperor simply chose to wither away and die. A brief memory shows the royal couple in happier times, glowing with divine light. The nostalgic memory fades, leaving only the cold reality of the quiet palace rule. The scene transitions to Prince Kamut's personal chambers, silent and peaceful. Inside her luxurious cage, Rhinel the crow groans in absolute misery and boredom. A wave of intense hunger strikes the poor bird as her stomach rumbles loudly. The frustrated crow violently shakes the bars of her cage, demanding some food. Rhinel screams in comedic despair, wondering how long her prince has been gone. She laments her fast avian metabolism, feeling like she has been starving for days. Greeting, the servant frantically panics, wondering why the bird refuses to eat the bugs. Rhinel weeps comically, begging for Prince Kamut to return and save her. The hungry bird casts a suspicious sidelong glance toward the food bowl. Her eyes lock onto the bowl filled with plump, wriggling worms. The worms are comically illustrated as incredibly cute, smiling anime characters. Drool drips from Rhinel's beak as her hunger tries to override her disgust. The crow rationally contemplates whether her avian body might actually enjoy the taste. Rhinel's remaining human dignity immediately punches the intrusive thought right out of her mind. Her human pride fights a losing battle as Rhinel comically punches her own intrusive thoughts to maintain her dignity. She reels from the terrifying realization that sheer starvation nearly stripped away her remaining humanity. Helpless and desperate, the ravenous crow mentally begs for Kamut's swift return before she succumbs to eating bugs. Just as her resolve crumbles, a warm, familiar hand gently reaches down and calls her name. Prince Kamut arrives right on cue, expressing deep relief at his beloved companion's safety. Overwhelmed with comical joy, Rhinel lets out a dramatic screech of pure happiness at her savior's return. Seeing his bird's desperate state, Kamut immediately orders his bewildered servant to fetch fresh meat and fruit. Finally saved, a stuffed Rhinel happily gorges herself on delicious sweet treats instead of wriggling insects. Having survived the culinary nightmare, she proudly celebrates safeguarding her precious human dignity. Her luxurious meal finished, Kamut gently invites his feather-brained savior to join him on the bed. The prince waves her over with a warm, welcoming smile, eager to pamper his loyal companion. Kamut reveals his desire to reward her with a special gift to commemorate their grand return. With elegant ease, the prince reaches over to unlock a beautifully crafted wooden chest. Kamut open-handedly presents the grand offering, encouraging his avian savior to play with whatever she desires. Rhinel's eyes widen in sheer unadulterated shock as she stares at the dazzling prize. Stunned silence fills the room as a sparkling aura of unimaginable wealth radiates outward. The chest overflows with a breathtaking collection of priceless sparkling gemstones. Her logical human mind struggles to process this absurdly extravagant gesture for a mere bird. Despite her doubts, Rhinel's underlying raven instincts instantly flare up at the sight of the shimmering treasure. She humorously laments that such incredibly romantic treatment is wasted on her current feathered form. While she briefly fantasizes about a sweeping human romance, she quickly dismisses the delusional thought. Kamut looks on with amusement, softly asking if his precious pet approves of her grand gifts. Rhinel marvels at how completely her public reputation as a harbinger of bad luck has vanished. Eager to reciprocate, the clever crow gently picks up a brilliant red gem to offer the prince. Kamut gazes down in disbelief, wondering if his beloved bird is truly presenting him a gift. The prince is deeply touched, treasuring the simple stone as if it were the most valuable artifact in the empire. Filled with profound gratitude, Kamut wraps his arms around the giant black bird in a warm embrace. A vibrant transition marks the passage of time as the bond between prince and savior deepens. The scene shifts to the dazzling splendor of the imperial palace's sprawling sunlit gardens. Majestic fountains spray sparkling water amidst the meticulously groomed, colorful royal flower beds. Taking full advantage of her freedom, Rhinel spreads her wings and soars high into the bright blue sky. She relishes the sheer thrill of flight, enjoying the refreshing breeze of the open palace grounds. Swooping down, Rhinel gleefully decides to explore the beautiful gardens on foot for a change of pace. A nearby palace gardener gasps in sudden horror as he spots the massive black bird landing nearby. Fearing the imperial bird is an intruder, the panicked worker readies his broom to aggressively chase it away. Before the broom can strike, a powerful hand firmly grabs the handle, stopping the gardener dead in his tracks. A cold, authoritative voice strictly commands the trembling servant never to lay a hand on the broad. The terrified gardener turns to find Prince Kamut standing tall and majestic, radiating an icy aura. With a terrifyingly calm expression, Kamut warns him that any harm brought to his beloved crow will bring severe consequences. Horrified by the prince's chilling threat, the gardener quickly scrambles away in sheer comical panic. Left alone in the garden, Kamut crosses his arms and sighs in deep, thoughtful frustration. He realizes that relying on verbal warnings to protect Rhinel is far too risky and inefficient. Kamut contemplates a more permanent solution to signal to the entire palace that this bird is strictly off limits. Hearing footsteps approach, Rhinel perks her head up, sensing a new presence entering the garden. A distant, familiar figure walks purposefully down the path toward the blonde prince. The tense atmosphere thickens as an uninvited guest approaches, ready to break the peaceful quiet. Llewellyn appears with a smug, mocking smile, casually calling out to his older brother. The treacherous third prince feigns worry, mockingly asking if Kamut had gone missing once again. Underneath the flowery backdrop, Llewellyn's poisonous words lay bare his deep-seated hostility toward Kamut. Observing from the shadows, Rhinel unleashes an epic, high-stakes death glare that promises absolute doom for the arrogant prince. Tensions explode to a whole new level as a mysterious voice questions why meeting in person is such a massive problem. The peaceful garden path stands quiet as an underlying tension begins to brew. Prince Kamut stands with crossed arms as his brother mockingly criticizes his cold, harsh treatment of family. The light brown-haired brother laments the pity of their youngest sibling while teasing Kamut about his changing preferences. Visual sparks fly as an intense stare-down commences between the rivals. Sensing the violent, bloody aura rising in the air, the Black Crow's sweat drops in pure panic. The newcomer shifts the conversation, claiming they actually arrived because of some highly intriguing rumors. The light brown-haired man inquisitively asks Kamut about the details of this mysterious news. A sinister crimson glow fills his brother's eyes, signaling danger. He brings up how Kamut previously promised their father that he would secure the imperial succession. Enveloped by dark thorns, the light brown-haired brother furiously questions if Kamut is actually serious about his claim. Prince Kamut flashes a confident, knowing smirk and firmly confirms that he is absolutely serious. He muses that the long-standing question of succession should finally be resolved once and for all. The looming question of who will successfully claim the crown remains. A brutal struggle is laid bare, questioning who will survive. A dark vision highlights the terrifying stakes of their deadly rivalry. The light brown-haired brother bursts into manic, distorted laughter, completely disbelieving Kamut's bold declaration. He mockingly laughs at the idea of a useless individual who hasn't even awakened their powers making such a claim. Prince Kamut remains completely unbothered, resting his chin on his hand with a calm, sarcastic smile. He retorts that despite his brother's awakening, he still hasn't managed to secure the throne. As Kamut insults his brother's obsession, the Black Crow hilariously puts on 3D glasses and eats popcorn to enjoy the drama. Kamut mockingly tells his furious brother to think carefully about the harsh reality of their situation. Grabbing Kamut's collar, the enraged brother demands to know who is truly the useless one between them. Screaming in a blood-red rage, the brother commands Kamut never to speak so lightly of the succession. Unleashing a torrent of dark, violent energy, the furious brother prepares to transform right then and there. Kamut calmly notes that his brother is reacting exactly as he had anticipated. A sharp shockwave of power erupts as the transformation starts. The air turns crimson as the dark power reaches its peak. The light brown-haired brother fully transforms into a massive golden-brown beast, confronting Kamut directly. Kamut unimpressively remarks that the beast looks far more like a common dog than a majestic wolf. The massive golden-brown beast lunges forward with a bloody swipe. The transformed beast leaps high, aiming directly at the prince. Kamut sighs in minor annoyance, wondering how he should best deal with this noisy nuisance. With lightning speed, the blonde prince delivers a powerful kick straight to the giant beast's face. The massive golden-brown wolf is violently blasted backward by Kamut. Kamut suddenly calls out in worry as a black shadow unexpectedly cuts through the battlefield. A brutal shockwave of blood and energy rips across the garden. The golden-brown beast falls, surrounded by sudden purple sparks. Screaming in absolute fury, the giant Black Crow swoops down to defend her precious prince from the attacker. Boasting about her legendary combat instincts, the chaotic crow prepares to dive-bomb the beast head-on. The aggressive Black Crow violently claws at the beast's face. Kamut sweat drops in deadpan disbelief, dryly reminding his chaotic bird that the beast is actually his brother. The Black Crow flies teasingly out of reach, mockingly chanting that the giant dog can't catch her. Powerful magic shockwave slams directly into the transformed beast. The relentless Black Crow swoops down once more, unleashing fury. The massive golden-brown beast takes another heavy, crushing blow. The giant wolf is sent flying across the garden path. Reverting to his human form, the defeated light brown-haired brother coughs up blood in absolute shock. Kamut walks over with absolute authority, demanding to know why his brother dared to trespass and attack his companion. The prince ruthlessly declares that wild dog blood has absolutely no place within the prestigious imperial family. This is the moment a terrifying new power dynamic shifts the entire imperial court as Prince Kamut stands tall, radiating an imposing, majestic aura of absolute authority. Defeated and humiliated, the furious third prince Llewellyn screams in absolute rage, nursing his bruised face and cursing his brother's sheer audacity. Grounded at his brother's feet, Llewellyn bitterly acknowledges that despite his royal bloodline, he has yet to awaken his dormant powers. Glaring up with venomous eyes, the defeated prince delivers a dark, chilling warning to his victorious older brother. Llewellyn fiercely asserts that his lack of awakening doesn't mean his raw strength or ambition lag behind. Thorns of malice tighten as Llewellyn plots to crush a brother he still views as fragile. The treacherous prince confidently believes that seizing final victory over Kamut will be an effortless task. Kamut leans down with a mocking, victorious smile, completely unfazed by his brother's desperate threats. The chilling metaphorical thorns of their deadly sibling rivalry tighten around the defeated third prince. Left in the dirt, Llewellyn gasps for breath as his grand illusions of superiority crumble. Crawling back to his feet, the prince vows never to let himself be humiliated like this again. Kamut internally calculates the political chaos that would erupt if he immediately seized the imperial succession with his massive following. He envisions the court falling into absolute, blood-soaked confusion if his moves are not perfectly calculated. Kamut resolves to eliminate his traitorous brother only after his own political foundation is completely solidified. Deep in thought, the blonde prince ponders his next decisive move to secure his ultimate victory. Breaking his train of thought, Kamut softly calls for his beloved blackbird to return to his side. A wave of panic washes over Reinel as she senses her prince's intense, unpredictable mood. Kamut scoops up the nervous bird. He lets out a tiny sweating chirp of confusion in his grasp. Reinel internally freaks out, desperately wondering if she has somehow crossed a line with the prince. Kamut crosses his arms, looking deeply conflicted and troubled by his companion's reckless behavior. Sitting heavily on his bed, the prince expresses genuine worry about the danger his little bird faced against Llewellyn. He warns Reinel that the proud and ruthless third prince might now target her for revenge. To dodge his anger, Reinel unleashes an ultimate weapon of absolute teary-eyed cuteness. The devastating cute attack hits Kamut instantly, making his heart race as he immediately regrets scolding her. The prince quickly tries to compose himself, clearing his throat to maintain his serious, authoritative demeanor. Kamut firmly lectures the bird, pointing out that she always acts far too recklessly during crises. He gently emphasizes the terrifying reality that she could have been severely injured or worse. Reaches out a warm, welcoming hand, his anger melting away into pure concern for her safety. Guilty and silent, the clever crow can only sit quietly, unable to argue with his logic. Reinel recalls her past human life, where her extensive knowledge of animal biology and reflexes gave her an edge. She realized she only intervened because she calculated the exact limits of a raven's natural reflexes. She humorously compares her current heroics to the time her past life dog recklessly chased down a bus. Observing his sorrowful face, the crow realizes just how deeply terrified her beloved prince was of losing her. Gently, the black bird nudges his hand with her beak to offer him some comfort. Touched by her sweet gesture, Kamut tenderly strokes her feathers with a soft, affectionate smile. The tense atmosphere completely softens as the prince gazes down warmly at his loyal companion. A sudden, wild theory strikes Kamut's mind as he wonders if Reinel is actually a mythical dragon in disguise. He reasons that a dragon's legendary reflexes would easily explain how she dodged Llewellyn's attacks. However, he is puzzled by why a powerful dragon would remain entirely unable to use her original powers. He ultimately considers the simpler yet equally fascinating possibility that she is just an exceptionally brilliant bird. Putting his theories aside, Kamut sits closely beside her, focusing entirely on the bond they share. The prince softly requests that she no longer put her life on the line to protect him. He reassures her that now that he has awakened, he is no longer weak or helpless. Looking into her eyes, Kamut prepares to deliver a heartfelt, deeply personal confession. A breathtakingly warm, genuine smile spreads across the prince's handsome face. He fiercely promises that he will never allow a vile threat like Llewellyn to take her away. Far away, a glass vessel violently shatters on the floor as absolute fury erupts in the third prince's quarters. Llewellyn unleashes his insane rage, violently destroying everything in sight after being utterly outplayed by his brother. Panting heavily amidst the absolute wreckage, the humiliated prince struggles to accept his crushing defeat. Covering his weeping face in pure, unadulterated hatred, the defeated villain vows to make Comet pay, setting the stage for a final, catastrophic clash of dynasties. After suffering a stinging defeat, the third prince Llewellyn vividly recalls how that cursed raven attacked his wolf form with savage precision. Nursing his bruised ego and wounded face, the humiliated Prince Llewellyn seethes with burning hatred toward the bird that dared to strike him. In his dark, twisted delusions of absolute power, Llewellyn vows to eradicate every single raven in the empire the moment he takes the throne. His malicious obsession deepens as he imagines a world completely purged of every black feather. Shaking off his chaotic thoughts, the brown-haired prince turns back, his sharp mind beginning to piece together a new conspiracy. A sudden, chilling realization freezes him in his tracks as he pauses to reconsider his brother's actions. Glaring ahead with menacing red eyes, Llewellyn begins to dissect the suspicious behavior of his older brother, Prince Kamut. He recalls the exact moment Kamut recklessly intervened to protect the bird, confirming his suspicions of a deeper secret. He reasons that no matter his brother's typical caution, Kamut's aggressive defense of the bird was highly uncharacteristic. A sinister, dark grin spreads across Llewellyn's face as he resolves to launch a covert investigation into the bird's true identity. With absolute determination, the treacherous third prince plots his next move to expose his brother's hidden weakness. Tense footsteps echo through the dim palace corridors as the scheming prince sets his dark plan into motion. Standing before a grand mirror, Llewellyn adjusts his regal white attire, his reflection masking the darkness festering within him. Pressing his hands together, the ambitious prince commands a secret magical ally to immediately create a dangerous weapon for his scheme. The grand mirror suddenly warps with swirling, ominous purple magical energy as a forbidden spell is activated. From the depths of the swirling darkness, a chilling ancient voice vows to obey the future emperor's commands. A mysterious hooded figure clad in purple wizard robes materializes amidst dark foliage, ready to execute the prince's bidding. Back in his quiet study, the blonde Prince Kamut diligently works at his desk, completely unaware of his brother's brewing plot. Perched affectionately on his shoulder, the loyal black crow Reinel playfully nibbles on the prince, silently urging him to rest. A sudden knock on the door interrupts their peaceful moment as an attendant announces the arrival of Marcus Namuel. Kamut and his crow both perk up in surprise, the prince desperately trying to recall where he has heard that name before. The door opens to reveal the elegant long silver hair of their mysterious and high-ranking visitor. A strikingly handsome silver-haired man wearing a green cloak, Marquis Namuel, warmly greets the prince and presents a small box. Smiling charmingly, the polite nobleman asks if his sudden arrival has disrupted the prince's busy royal schedule. Kamut marvels at how quickly his order was fulfilled as a sudden gust of wind sweeps through the room. Completely captivated by the newcomer's dazzling looks, Reinel spreads her wings and flies straight toward the handsome silver-haired guest. With her eyes literally glowing with pure, unadulterated excitement, the feathered romantic completely loses herself in his beauty. Reinel recalls the lore of the original story, realizing this magical duke is also a powerful and legendary witch. A wave of excitement washes over her as she remembers his role as the true male protagonist of the original plot. She happily fantasizes about his majestic presence, picturing him dancing elegantly in his original heroic glory. Overwhelmed with joy, the crow's inner human soul swoons over meeting the ultimate handsome hero in real life. In a comical daze of romantic bliss, she floats around the silver-haired witch like a completely starstruck fan. Amused by her sudden affection, the friendly Marquis laughs and notes that he has never seen such a lively raven. Observing his beloved pet completely throw herself at another man, Kamut breaks into a cold, comically jealous sweat. Namuel chuckles in delight as the enthusiastic bird lovingly rubs against his cheek, completely winning him over. Prince Kamut seethes with intense, quiet jealousy as he realizes his bird has never treated him with such immediate passion. Taking a deliberate and authoritative step forward, the blonde prince decides it is time to end this embarrassing display. With a stern, commanding tone, Kamut reaches out his hand and demands that Reinel immediately return to his side. He firmly grabs his disobedient bird, scolding her for bothering their distinguished imperial guest. Snapping back to reality, the guilty crow lets out a nervous gasp as she realizes she has pushed her prince too far. Reinel internally panics, realizing she was so easily seduced by a pretty face that she completely neglected her own handsome prince. Desperate to escape a lecture, the clever bird begins to sweat and coo, trying to sweet-talk her way back into Kamut's good graces. A tiny, frustrated chibi Kamut tightly holds the bird, warning her that a long, stern lecture awaits her later. Namuel leans in close to observe them, utterly fascinated by the incredibly expressive and intelligent bird. Silver-haired Duke notes that while ravens are notoriously smart, he has never seen one so exceptionally obedient. He openly wonders if this extraordinary creature could be a reincarnated human or perhaps a legendary dragon in disguise. Acting fast to protect her secret, Kamut immediately shuts down the dangerous theory, insisting she is just a normal bird. The blonde prince protectively hugs his secret-bearing crow, making it clear to the guest that she is strictly off-limits. Shifting the focus to the mysterious business at hand, Namuel gently opens the ornate black velvet case. Inside the box, a breathtaking blue teardrop gem necklace sparkles, holding the key to the next phase of their alliance. Preparing to unveil a game-changing secret, the silver-haired Marquis Namuel presents the magical blue teardrop necklace. Namuel warmly hints that the exquisite gift must be intended for someone deeply precious to the prince. Kamut's heart skips a beat as he tries to process the nobleman's suggestive words. The clever black crow starts overthinking, her mind racing with wild, chaotic possibilities. Reinel descends into a dramatic fantasy, imagining her beloved prince walking down the aisle with a mysterious bride. In her hilarious daydream, the blonde prince looks back tearfully, pleading not to be left behind. Overwhelmed by her own wild imagination, the dramatic bird dreads the thought of a lonely future. A spiral of hilarious, over-the-top despair consumes the starstruck crow's consciousness. She envisions the perfect prince, promising that he could never possibly abandon her side. Back in reality, the poor bird can only let out a pathetic, guilt-ridden quack. Her delusions escalate further as she pictures the prince asking her to be his cherished baby. Realizing how bizarre her thoughts have become, she screams internally in pure embarrassment.
Reinel shrieks in dramatic agony, desperately trying to shake off her embarrassing delusions. She decides that her excessive clinginess is far too pathetic to endure.
Reinel laments her current animal form, wondering if romance is simply a luxury she cannot afford. Suddenly, gentle hands reach down to loop the precious silver chain around her neck. The breathtaking blue crystal rests perfectly against her dark feathers, sparkling with magical energy. The feathered romantic freezes in sheer shock as she realizes the gift is meant for her. Under a shower of romantic roses, the prince holds his loyal companion close, wearing a tender smile. Reinel rejoices in absolute ecstasy, celebrating the fact that her beloved prince is not leaving her. She proudly flaunts her new treasure, completely unbothered that the fit is slightly loose. Suddenly, the magical jewelry snaps firmly into a snug fit, catching her completely off guard. Namuel laughs and reveals that the enchanted necklace was designed to perfectly fit its wearer. Kamut declares that the magical accessory serves as a proud symbol of her identity. Protective Prince warns his guest to stop showing such intense interest in his precious bird. Kamut's expression turns deadly serious as he asks Namuel about his true motives. The atmosphere grows heavy as Namuel acknowledges Kamut's status as the Empire's future ruler. The mysterious guest admits that keeping a close watch on the prince is necessary. He admits that dealing with the powerful prince will always be a challenge. Kamut points out the harsh reality of palace life and demands to know Namul's ultimate goal. Namuel recalls his father's lifelong warning to stay far away from royal schemes. He explains how his unawakened royal father willingly gave up his claim to avoid controversy. Namuel explains that he chose the path of sorcery specifically to escape greedy nobles. He reveals that the cruel third prince Llewellyn has severely limited his freedom of movement. Namuel exposes Llewellyn's dark nature, explaining how the villain views powerful wizards as mere tools. He predicts absolute ruin for the entire empire if Llewellyn succeeds in taking the crown. The proud sorcerer declares his refusal to serve such a monstrous ruler. Standing amidst blue roses, the silver-haired nobleman pledges to defy the tyrannical third prince. Kamut remains entirely silent, carefully weighing the potential allies' heavy words. He pointedly questions if Namuel truly believes he would govern any differently once crowned. Kamut notes with deep cynicism that corrupting power changes human nature far too easily. Reinel instantly detects the deliberate test hidden beneath her prince's cynical remarks. Namuel smiles warmly, confidently passing the prince's silent test of character. To prove his ultimate loyalty, the silver-haired mage prepares to offer a priceless peace offering. He reveals a breathtaking, luminous blue crystal sealed securely inside a glass jar. Reinel is struck by absolute panic as she recognizes the legendary Kroban rock. Namuel explains that consuming this rare, mythical artifact will instantly unlock one's latent power. Reinel desperately tries to piece together how this artifact alters the course of history. She envisions the game-changing moment this artifact was meant to trigger in the original timeline. The fate of the entire empire hangs in the balance as the legendary crystal gleams ominously. An incredible revelation drops as the legendary Kraben rock is revealed to be an exceptionally rare and heavily regulated treasure. Shifting the focus to sheer luck, the speaker recalls how finding the legendary stone in a griffin's nest required pure fortune. A wave of pure panic washes over Reinel as she screams in frustration, realizing the gravity of her unintended interference. Sweating profusely, the Black Crow's purple eye widens in absolute shock as the reality of her actions sinks in. Shockwaves of fear erupt as Reinel worries about the massive butterfly effect her timeline changes might cause. With a blinding flash of anxiety, she frantically wonders if her intervention will cause the entire world to collapse. The silver-haired Marquis Namula explains his royal lineage, revealing he pursues magic rather than imperial power struggles. Prince Kamut confidently smiles, acknowledging the Marquis' sincerity and the incredible value of his magical breakthroughs. Looking back with a brilliant smile, the silver-haired noble officially offers his unwavering support to the blonde prince. Stepping forward with absolute resolve, Prince Kamut formally accepts the alliance and agrees to sign the contract. Surrounded by shining gold light, the prince vows to secure the throne with the powerful backing of his new ally. Under a veil of elegant flowers, Prince Kamut solemnly swears to take full responsibility for Marquis Namu's future. Bowing with deep respect, the silver-haired mage gracefully pledges his vast knowledge and words to the prince's cause. Namuel gently requests that the prince speak more informally to him now that their grand alliance is secured. The blonde prince flashes a knowing, triumphant smirk as his grand master plan falls perfectly into place. A sparkling magical aura shines as Prince Kamut firmly accepts the fateful path laid out before them. The focus shifts to a legendary Kroban rock sparkling brilliantly inside its highly secure glass container. Holding the glowing blue gem high, Prince Kamut thoughtfully contemplates who is worthy of receiving such a powerful gift. Staring intensely at the sparkling artifact, the prince recognizes the absolute need for a completely loyal and unwavering ally. Gazing down at his Black Crow companion, Kamut tenderly realizes that Reinel is the only one who truly has his heart. A legendary lore revelation explains that a simple crow could theoretically ascend into a dragon by consuming this rock. Perched amidst white blossoms, the majestic Black Crow proudly displays her glittering blue pendant, unaware of the lurking danger. Suddenly, Reinel breaks into a cold sweat as a strange, overwhelming magical sensation begins to grip her. Shifting the scene, the chaotic crow tries to shake off the bizarre mystical pressure weighing heavily on her mind. The floating blue crystal shines brightly as she realizes the terrifying butterfly effect that could occur if Kamut awakens. Drawn in by a hypnotic power, she finds herself completely enchanted by the dazzling, swirling aura of the rock. Enveloped in a strange purple mist, the Black Crow succumbs to a fascinating, irresistible urge pulling her forward. In a sudden flash of movement, the chaotic bird lunges forward and snaps her beak around the glowing blue crystal. Terror strikes the blonde prince as he gasps in absolute horror, calling out her name in sheer desperation. Panic explodes as Kamut frantically begs his precious companion to drop the incredibly lethal toxic magical artifact immediately. Staring blankly with the glowing gem wedged tightly in her beak, the stubborn crow completely ignores his desperate pleas. With a sudden heavy gulp, the reckless Black Crow boldly swallows the priceless, dangerous magic stone whole. A brilliant blue light erupts from her chest as the prince screams in absolute despair at the irreversible mistake. Reliving the chaotic moment, the relentless bird snaps her beak around the glowing magical treasure once again. Kamut's eyes widen in paralyzing fear as he desperately screams out for her to stop before it's too late. The panicked prince begs his companion to spit out the highly toxic stone, frantically trying to appeal to her gentle nature. Silent Crow stands completely motionless, refusing to let go of the powerful crystal clamped firmly in her beak. With a single decisive swallow, she successfully gulps down the legendary artifact, sending shockwaves through the room. A radiant, uncontrollable energy surge flares from her chest as the prince watches his worst nightmare unfold in real time. Lunging forward in a frantic panic, Kamut grabs his companion's neck, desperately commanding her to spit out the deadly stone. A dark, agonizing vision fills the prince's mind as he dreads the catastrophic consequences of her reckless magical consumption. A majestic blue phoenix-like entity soars through the cosmos, representing the volatile, untamed power now surging inside her. Overwhelmed by absolute dread, Prince Kamut is haunted by a terrifying future where he must helplessly watch her perish. Staring with intense, tearful eyes, the blonde prince resolutely vows that he will never let her die. Gently cradling her throat, the distraught prince tries to assess the state of his chaotic black crow companion.
Standing quietly by the desk, Kamut holds his small companion close, waiting anxiously for any sign of life.
A heavy, suffocating silence fills the room as the prince desperately hopes and prays for her survival. Breaking the tense silence, the black crow suddenly lets out a small puff of smoke with a comical burp. Tilting her head in complete confusion, the chaotic bird stares blankly at her utterly bewildered and exhausted prince. Collapsing onto the sofa in pure relief, Kamut buries his face in his hand, thanking the heavens that she is safe. The legendary crystal has been consumed, triggering a catastrophic transformation that could change the fate of the Empire forever. Right now, the Black Crow panics in sheer disbelief as Prince Kamut strictly warns her never to eat random objects again. Her mind races back to the moment she swallowed the Kroban rock, remembering nothing but its mesmerizing glow before everything went black. Fear of a catastrophic butterfly effect grips her as she desperately weighs the consequences of altering the original story timeline. She frantically inspects her tiny bird body, relieved to find that everything seems physically normal for now.
In a comical daydream, the ambitious crow imagines herself unleashing legendary laser-firing powers that would make her future incredibly easy.
She envisions herself letting out a mighty soundwave attack to easily blow away any enemy in her path. The silly fantasy quickly shatters as she flops onto her back, realizing absolutely nothing magical has happened to her. Renelle comically slumps over in defeat, wondering if she will just have to live a normal life of selling crows to make ends meet. Suddenly, an agonizing spasm shoots through her entire body, forcing a dramatic and pathetic quack from her beak. Gripped by sudden, excruciating pain, she wonders in absolute terror what is happening to her physical form. Seeing his beloved companion in sudden distress, Prince Kamut instantly panics and begs her to tell him what is wrong. A surge of intense magical energy begins to build up, leaving Renelle to wonder if her long-awaited transformation is finally beginning. Instead of a magical glow, her body is racked with a pain so severe it feels as if her very bones are shattering. Kamut desperately shakes his limp, unresponsive bird, shouting her name in a frantic attempt to wake her up. Cradling her fragile body close to his chest, the heartbroken prince weeps with intense guilt over his failure to protect her. A lavender-haired imperial healer is quickly summoned to examine the bird, concluding that her body appears physically healthy despite her state. Puzzled by the lack of physical injuries, the healer prepares to conduct a deeper magical analysis on the suffering creature. Kamut is not reassured and demands to know why his precious companion is in such immense, agonizing pain. The healer gravely explains that standard recovery prayers and divine magic are completely ineffective in treating her condition. Kamut is struck with horror as he realizes the mysterious energy is absorbing the healing magic without showing any signs of recovery. Meanwhile, the unconscious crow continues to burn up with a fever, her temperature rising to dangerously high levels. Gritting his teeth in absolute frustration, the prince searches desperately for any possible clue to save her. The healer urgently steps forward to begin a specialized magical diagnosis, hoping to uncover the root of the issue. A heavy, suffocating silence fills the room as the prince can only watch over her bedside in despair. Overwhelmed by the tragedy, Kamut blames himself entirely for allowing his precious companion to suffer. He looks back on his past memories, wishing more than anything that he could have prevented this nightmare. As the dark night deepens, the helpless prince is left with no choice but to watch over her sleeping form. A crushing sense of dread and helplessness continues to hang heavily over the dark, quiet room. In the silence of the night, the exhausted prince sits slumped over the bed, holding on to a faint sliver of hope. Tears stream down Kamut's face as he desperately pleads for his loyal companion to open her eyes. He softly promises that he will never lecture her again if only she will return safely to his side. Outside the Grand Palace walls, the quiet night progresses under a canopy of endless and different stars. As Kamut finally drifts off to sleep, mysterious purple magical sparks begin to swirl around the unconscious bird. The magical aura intensifies, gathering around Reinelle in a dazzling and mystical display. Suddenly, Reinelle's human soul awakens, finding herself floating in a vast, starry, and celestial void. She gasps in utter shock as she looks down at her hands, realizing she no longer has the wings of a crow. A booming, mysterious voice echoes through the cosmic space, questioning her will to live. Reinelle fiercely rejects the idea of dying, refusing to let her journey end in such a tragic and pathetic way. She remembers Prince Kamut's tearful face, realizing there is still so much she wants to experience by his side. The celestial space shifts as a single white feather drifts gently through the dark cosmic void. A brilliant beam of pure radiant light suddenly pierces through the darkness of the night sky. The blinding dawnlight breaks over the vast forest, casting a warm glow across the entire land. Radiant, shimmering energy sweeps across the sky, heralding a massive and legendary magical event. Suddenly, a majestic, colossal black wing unfurls against the blazing golden light of the new dawn. The immense silhouette of a legendary bird rises, watching over the glowing figure of her true human form.
Black feathers drift gracefully through the fiery sky as the legendary power prepares for its ultimate awakening.
Staring ahead with dazzling multicolored rainbow eyes, the legendary blackbird prepares to claim her true destiny. She resolves to become the ultimate wings of the wolf, guiding and protecting the prince through all the trials ahead. Though her small bird body once hovered on the very brink of death, she stands poised to defy her tragic fate. Determined to protect the one she loves, the legendary bird prepares to unleash a power that will shake the entire empire to its core. A legendary prophecy unfolds, recalling the ancient myth of a blackbird who gave birth to the very first crow. Mystical blue eggs lay shattered on the ground, leaving behind remnants of an ancient power. The legendary crystal floats in the cosmos, destined to be consumed so its children can soar to unimaginable heights. Reinel's soul drifts peacefully in a celestial realm, surrounded by the magical energy of her imminent transformation. Back in the waking world, Prince Kamut slowly stirs, waking up from his deep, guilt-ridden sleep. Still dazed, the prince rubs his eyes and groggily tries to process his surroundings. He realizes with a shock that he had unintentionally fallen asleep right by his companion's side. Kamut calls out for Reinel, wondering what could have happened during the long, silent night. Suddenly, his eyes widen in pure shock as he spots a mass of long, dark hair on the bed where the bird once lay. Instead of a small crow, a pair of delicate human feet with black feather-like markings rests on the sheets. A beautiful black-haired woman lies in the bed, wrapped in a golden sheet and sniffling softly. Under a shower of falling rose petals, her slender legs are revealed, still bearing the faint remnants of her avian form. The mysterious beauty sleeps peacefully, completely unaware of the dramatic transformation she has undergone. Kamut stands completely frozen in absolute disbelief, sweating as he stares at the stranger in his bed. He looks closer at the unconscious woman, trying to comprehend this impossible situation. The glowing blue crystal necklace sparkles around her neck as a soft feather drifts down beside her. The prince warily questions if this mysterious woman could be a highly stealthy assassin sent to eliminate him. He quickly dismisses the thought, noting her soft hands and how peacefully she sleeps right in front of her target. He suddenly notices the enchanted necklace she wears, recognizing its unique magic. The puzzle pieces begin to fit together as Kamut stares down at the sleeping beauty in sheer amazement. A startling realization hits him as he wonders if this stunning woman is actually his precious Reinel. Feathers gently drift around her dark silky hair as the remnant magical energy begins to settle. Kamut gently reaches out, running his fingers through her soft, dark tresses. He marvels at the texture, realizing the hair feels exactly like Reinel's soft feathers. Any lingering doubt vanishes as he finally confirms that the beautiful woman before him is indeed his beloved companion. She lies peacefully amidst a bed of roses, the enchanted blue jewel gleaming brightly against her chest. Cupping her face with utmost tenderness, the prince gently caresses her cheek as she begins to wake. Her eyelids flutter open, revealing mesmerizing, vibrant purple and gold jewel-like eyes. Still half asleep, Reinel cuddles up to the bewildered prince, affectionately nuzzling him just like she did in her bird form. She groggily rubs her eyes, slowly shaking off the remnants of her deep, agonizing slumber. Suddenly, she freezes in utter confusion as she gazes down at her own hand. Instead of a dark clawed wing, she stares at a pair of delicate, pale human hands. Her eyes widen in sheer, unadulterated shock as the reality of her physical state washes over her. Reinel leaps up in a frenzy, desperately screaming for a mirror to see what has happened to her.
She frantically scrambles around the room, determined to find her reflection immediately.
A panicked Kamut grabs her from behind, urgently telling her to calm down before she accidentally runs out the exit. He points her in the right direction, directing her toward a large mirror standing in the room. Standing side by side, the prince watches as Reinel finally catches her first glimpse of her human form.
She touches her face in awe, stunned by her dramatic new appearance. She marvels at how completely different she looks compared to her original life.
Reinel is mesmerized by her doll-like face, incredibly soft skin, and brilliant jewel-like eyes. She realizes this miraculous evolution was triggered entirely by consuming the legendary Kroban rock. The incredible cosmic power of the artifact has permanently rewritten her destiny, unlocking her true human potential. However, she soon realizes that her long-awaited human form is not quite what she expected. Looking down at herself, she laments that her new body feels incredibly fragile and weak. She mentally rants, wishing she had at least retained the muscle mass from her previous life. Reinel comically flexes her thin, slender arms, comparing them to weak cotton swabs. She complains that she cannot even defeat the tyrannical third Prince Llewellyn, who far away suddenly feels a tickle in his ear. She quickly decides to look on the bright side, celebrating the fact that she is finally a human again. Best of all, she rejoices that she will never have to live in a stuffy birdcage or fight caterpillars ever again. After escaping the clutches of death, the newly transformed black-haired beauty looks back with a single burning desire. Standing before her is her beloved blonde prince, who gazes down at her with a gentle, loving smile.
Kamut softly asks if she has had the chance to look at her new reflection yet.
She realizes that despite all the dreams she held, her limitations as a bird previously kept her completely paralyzed. Looking down with sadness in her purple eyes, she recalls how deeply frustrating and painful her helplessness used to feel. Driven by emotion, she suddenly lunges forward to wrap her feathered arms around him in a tight embrace. The sudden intimacy catches Kamut completely off guard as he calls out her name in surprise. Overwhelmed with joy, Reinel realizes she can finally speak to her prince using her actual voice. Tears stream down her face as she leans into his chest, expressing her deepest devotion to him. Shimmering sparkles dance near the grand chamber window as the emotional weight of their reunion fills the quiet room. Amu gently inquires if she is all right, causing a massive flustered blush to explode across her face. Sniffling softly into a cloth, she weakly admits that she might not be entirely fine. He sits beside her, asking if she is shocked by her physical transformation while she frantically tries to deny it. Breaking out in a nervous sweat, she panics over how to explain her true nature and her journey to find him.
She quickly realizes that telling the truth about her past life would sound entirely too unbelievable and convoluted.
As she sits quietly beside the prince, she internally contemplates the shocking reality of her situation. She remembers that in the cosmic order, her tragic life was orchestrated merely for the entertainment of others.
Swirling magical particles drift through the darkness as she prepares to confront her bizarre new destiny.
A single tear escapes her stunning purple eye as she looks back on all the suffering she endured.
Seeing her emotional distress, Kamut thoughtfully suggests that she should take things easy and rest.
Reinal explains that her reckless actions were driven entirely by her fear of losing him to the Kraben Rock's power. The prince falls into a pensive silence, deeply moved by her selfless concern for his life. Reinal looks up in surprise, wondering what could be going through his mind. Dark memory surfaces of Kamut weeping in absolute despair when he believed he had lost her forever. He leans in close, expressing that simply waking up safely is not nearly enough to ease his heart. Placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, he marvels at the fact that they can finally sit and talk like this. He pulls her close, whispering how incredibly happy and fortunate he feels to have her by his side. Their hands intertwine amidst a beautiful bed of blooming roses, sealing their emotional bond. Embracing her with absolute tenderness, the prince tearfully thanks her for waking up safely. Completely overwhelmed by his intense physical affection, Reinal's face flushes scarlet as she lets out confused squeaks. She internally panics as the romantic tension skyrockets to dangerous levels. She realizes that even when she was a mere crow, his loving gazes carried an unbelievably powerful impact. Prince flashes an incredibly handsome, dazzling smile that completely disarms her.
Her brain short-circuits as she desperately screams for help inside her mind to survive this sweet torment.
She flusteredly covers her eyes, desperately trying to deflect the romantic mood with jokes. Kamut is puzzled by her sudden avoidance and asks if his close embrace is making her uncomfortable. She screams internally about the overwhelming shock of being turned from a beast into a human. With her cheeks burning red, she fears her racy guard is literally about to explode. With a sudden burst of magic, her human form vanishes and she is instantly forced back into a crow. She tumbles onto the couch in a state of absolute comedic shock. The magical crystal necklace glimmers in the shadows as her transformation suddenly reverses. Reverting to her bird form, Crow Reinal flies around the room in a frantic, screaming panic. Just to confirm, is that correct? She lets out a despairing squawk, utterly devastated by this cruel twist of fate. She demands to know why she has suddenly reverted to a bird right after finally becoming human. She bitterly compares her fleeting human form to a cheap, cruel trial version of a premium service. She furiously questions if she actually has to pay real cash just to unlock her permanent human form. A startled Kamut quickly reaches up and snatches the wild flapping crow right out of the air. Holding her gently, he reassures her that she simply needs time and practice to get used to the change. Crow Reinal stares up at him, listening intently to his comforting words about practicing her transformation. Kamut smiles warmly and offers to show her a demonstration so she can learn how to control her powers. Blinding majestic gold aura erupts as the prince demonstrates his incredible divine beast transformation, manifesting a magnificent wolf form. A dazzling, incredibly handsome golden wolf emerges amidst a shower of glowing magical particles. Reinal the crow is instantly smitten, her cheeks flushing red as she secretly swoons over the wolf's stunning appearance. She marvels at the breathtaking beauty of his golden fur, realizing she has never seen anything so spectacular. Suddenly, the massive golden wolf leans in and affectionately licks her beak, startling her completely. The playful wolf finds her dramatic reaction adorable, while the flustered crow frantically flies away from his giant snout. When the prince suggests the process is simple, Reinal adamantly refuses, completely unconvinced by his casual attitude. She frantically protests, insisting she has absolutely no idea how to replicate his transformation. Kamut is left puzzled, wondering if his demonstration was somehow lacking. Reinal internally sighs, realizing the prince is a natural genius who is terrible at explaining things to others. Attempting to simplify, the prince tries to break down the mental process of shapeshifting. He explains that she merely needs to focus her desires on the human form she wishes to assume. The crow sits in deep thought, questioning if simply wishing to be human is truly all it takes. Amused by the concept of manifestation, she jokingly compares it to her past life's lottery wishes before a sudden puff of magic erupts. Shimmering sparkles swirl around as the miraculous transformation begins to take physical shape. In an instant, her human form returns, leaving the prince wearing a triumphant, knowing smile. The scene shifts to the elegant chamber windows as sunlight streams through the pink drapes. A lavish, mouth-watering feast is laid out, presenting a spread of perfectly grilled steaks and fresh tomatoes.
Overjoyed by the sight of real food, Reinal practically sheds tears of absolute happiness.
Now in her human form, she blissfully savors the exquisite meal with pure delight. Kamut smiles warmly as he dines with her, gently advising her to take her time and eat slowly. The prince watches her with deep affection, his golden eyes shining with gentle warmth. He casually points out how naturally she uses the cutlery, causing her to instantly freeze and panic. Reinel internally panics, realizing she nearly exposed her biggest secret of having once been a human. She quickly makes up a hasty excuse about observing his actions, which the prince curiously accepts. Resolving to be far more careful, she finishes her meal and alerts the prince. Comet prepares to call the staff to clean up, asking her to temporarily revert back into a crow to hide her identity. Focusing her mind, the black-haired beauty closes her eyes and concentrates on her target form. Shimmering dark magical energy wraps around her as she smoothly initiates the transformation. With a flawless execution, she successfully transforms back into her familiar crow form. Prince instructs a maid to clear the table while Reinel sits quietly nearby, keeping her secret safe. Though she notes the physical limitations of her bird body, she recognizes the unique tactical advantages it provides. She confidently concludes that mastering both forms will make her an incredibly versatile ally. Standing beside her spectral human reflection, the clever crow prepares for her next grand move. She realizes that Kamut's secrecy is a protective measure to shield her from prying eyes. Keeping her abilities hidden ensures they maintain a critical advantage over potential enemies. The maid politely bows and departs the chamber, leaving the two completely alone once more. Once the coast is clear, Kamut turns to her and softly apologizes for the secrecy. Reinel is caught completely off guard by his sudden remorse. He explains his guilt over forcing her to hide, but mentions there is another crucial matter he must ask. She looks up at him, her vibrant purple eyes filled with intense curiosity. She wonders if he wants her to act as a stealthy spy in her easily overlooked crow form. She even comically imagines herself disguised as a maid, sneaking around to eliminate their rival, Llewellyn. Determined to assist her beloved prince at any cost, she prepares herself to take on any dangerous task. Striking a heroic pose amidst a dramatic, fiery background, she resolves to excel at espionage. The prince gazes at her seriously, preparing to ask his true, deeply personal question. Standing side by side in their elegant attire, the contrasting duo prepares to address the lingering tension between them. Reinel is stunned as she realizes his true concern is purely about her safety rather than exploiting her magical abilities. Kamut sighs deeply as he describes his brother Llewellyn's insatiable greed and arrogance. He clenches his fist in frustration, expressing his deep reluctance to even speak of his dangerous sibling. Living in human form within the dangerous imperial palace is a fatal risk. She quietly admits to herself that his protective warnings make perfect sense. She figures remaining a clueless-looking crow is her safest bet for now. Suddenly, a warm hand gently lifts her chin, stopping her cold. The handsome prince gazes down at her with pure, undivided affection. He promises to create a safe world where her appearance never matters. A breathtakingly warm smile spreads across his face, instantly melting her heart. Reinel's cheeks flush crimson as she reels from his intense romantic gaze. Gently holding his hand, she prepares to make a bold decision. She offers to stand right by his side and aid his mission. She vows to help him bring about his new world much sooner. Overjoyed, the prince pulls her into a tight, incredibly passionate embrace. But dangerous shadows loom in the background, threatening their fleeting peace. A sinister laughter echoes as their tender moment is secretly watched. A scheming, brown-haired spy smiles maliciously, celebrating an unexpected intelligence coup. The crystal ball glowing on the table reveals their secret is compromised. Meanwhile, morning light spills into the grand chambers of Aravel. Marquis Wilhelm sits on his sofa, deeply frustrated by his failed plot. He fumes over how the first prince survived his perfect assassination trap. He recalls reports stating that all of Kamut's loyal knights were dead. He fully expected the severely wounded prince to perish in the wilderness. A dark memory flashes of the golden prince bleeding out among thorns. Yet, against all odds, the resilient prince survived the fatal onslaught. To make matters worse, Kamut declared his claim to the imperial throne. The power dynamic shifts dramatically, throwing the kingdom into absolute chaos. The desperate Marquis begins to doubt his own political maneuvers and judgment. He sits in heavy silence, realizing his grip on power slipping. He admits he only backed Llewellyn because of his awakened wolf blood. The sacred symbol of the wolf holds immense influence over the empire. The divine myth of the holy wolf blood unites the entire nation. This legendary power grants the crown absolute, unquestionable authority over the others. The raw strength of the imperial beastmen proves the myth's legitimacy. Even powerful beastmen leaders submit to the legendary golden wolf's rule. Powerful mercenary legends confirm that the wolf's might cannot be ignored. The formidable platinum plaque mercenaries hold sway across the entire continent. Because of this myth, Wilhelm had to support Prince Llewellyn's claim. He believed Llewellyn's incompetence could be fixed by loyal, clever servants. But his desperate political gamble has completely blown up in his face. Back at the towering palace, the tension reaches a boiling point. An ominous shadow sweeps across the terrace as a creature approaches. The ruined Marquis laments how Prince Llewellyn cruelly cast him aside. A furious, orange-haired Llewellyn screams and banishes the failing Marquis forever. Broken and abandoned, the disgraced noble clutches his head in despair. He realizes he must make a dangerous choice to survive the fallout. He cannot live in constant, paralyzing fear of being executed next. The cornered Marquis resolves to find an alternative way to survive. He desperately searches for a new, hidden path out of ruin. Standing by the window, he ponders his next dark, treasonous move. Suddenly, a massive black crow with glowing purple eyes corners him. The terrified noble gasps in horror as the beast intercepts him. Marquise Wilhelm freezes in absolute shock as Prince Kamut approaches, demanding to know why the disgraced noble sought an audience. The golden-eyed prince delivers a chilling question, demanding to know why Llewellyn's former right-hand man is suddenly crawling to him. The ominous Black Crow glares down with piercing purple eyes, silently demanding accountability for the previous assassination attempt. Sweat drips down the Marquis' face as he realizes he is walking directly into a deadly, unforgiving trap. Wilhelm panics as he realizes the prince is using the terrifying bird of death to issue a silent, lethal warning. Despite the overwhelming pressure, the noble steels his resolve, refusing to retreat after coming so far. Wilhelm boldly declares that he refuses to apologize for his past treason, claiming he merely acted in his own faction's best interests. The prince smiles mockingly, noting that the political playing field is completely shifted now that he has taken action. Kamut steps forward, coldly pointing out that Wilhelm's entire survival strategy completely collapsed the moment the assassination failed. The prince remorselessly points out that Wilhelm only came seeking his favor because he was discarded by his previous master. Kamut asks if his deductions are incorrect, while the crow looks on, quietly amused by the prince's sharp mind. Every word hits Wilhelm like a physical blow, stripping away his remaining dignity as he stands utterly exposed. Kamut's piercing gaze cuts through the Marquise's lies, reading his desperate intentions like an open book. Under the brilliant sunset glow, Wilhelm is forced to realize that Prince Kamut possesses the true, undeniable aura of an emperor. Overwhelmed by the prince's majestic presence, the defeated noble drops to his knees in complete submission. The disgraced Marquis abandons his pride, bowing low at the prince's feet to beg for his life. Looking down at the groveling noble, the blonde prince questions if Wilhelm understands the gravity of his desperate actions. A tense silence fills the terrace as the prince calmly awaits the kneeling man's response. Wilhelm bitterly accepts his reputation as a turncoat, admitting he made the wrong choice and must now pay the price.
Accepting his defeat, the Marquis prepares himself to face whatever grim fate the prince decides for him.
He surrenders completely, leaving his life and final destiny entirely in the hands of the rightful heir. Tension reaches a peak as the prince prepares to deliver his final life-altering judgment. Kamut delivers a harsh truth, explaining that he can never fully trust a man who flips sides so easily. The fading sunlight mirrors the noble's dwindling hopes as his pleas seem to fall on deaf ears. Prince emphasizes that political convenience and genuine loyalty can never be treated as the same thing. Kamut offers a grim term of alliance, warning the noble that he will be watched with constant suspicion if he joins them. Despite the harsh warning, Kamut poses a final question, hinting that survival is all that truly matters to a cornered man. Relief washes over Wilhelm's worn face as he realizes he has been granted a narrow lifeline to survive. The desperate noble eagerly accepts the deal, grateful for any chance to escape execution. With the dangerous negotiation settled, the scene shifts as the twilight sky paints the palace gardens. Now back in her beautiful human form, Reinel curiously asks Kamut why he chose to spare a man who once sought his death. Sitting closely beside her, Kamut chuckles softly, admitting that his political calculations are a bit complex to explain. He explains that sparing the Marquis ultimately offers a far greater political advantage than simply executing him. Sparing a high-ranking noble will send shockwaves through Llewellyn's faction, prompting others to defect to Kamut's side. He gently explains that true rulers must prioritize cold strategy over personal anger to win the ultimate crown. Prince reaches out gently, his gaze softening as he steers the conversation towards something far more personal. Kamut delivers a heart-melting confession, admitting that the assassination plot ironically led him straight to her. Reinel's breath hitches as the prince tenderly strokes her dark hair, his touch sending a jolt of electricity between them. Black-haired beauty freezes in absolute shock, her heart hammering wildly against her ribs at his sudden romantic words. Kamut lets out a warm, playful laugh, thoroughly amused by her incredibly flustered and adorable reaction. The prince's tone shifts to a gentler note as he asks Reinel a deeply personal question. He questions why a simple forest crow would risk everything to save a wounded stranger she didn't even know. Memory of her miraculous intervention flashes in his mind, leaving him genuinely mystified by her kindness. Reinel internally panics, frantically trying to devise a plausible explanation without exposing her past human identity. She hilariously rejects the idea of telling him she only saved him to avoid eating disgusting forest bugs and decomposing corpses. Suddenly, a brilliant excuse flashes in her mind, prompting her to look up with wide, shimmering purple eyes. She seizes upon the perfect, undeniably sweet explanation that will keep her secret perfectly safe. Recalling the exact moment she first laid eyes on the fallen prince, she remembers what truly drew her in. She prepares to confess the real reason she was drawn to him in that dark, dangerous forest. With a bright blush, she admits that his dazzling blonde hair shining beautifully in the forest light was simply too gorgeous to ignore. A gorgeous, black-haired beauty named Reinel smiles with shimmering purple eyes as a high-stakes imperial game begins. Reinel playfully downplays her lack of skills, while the blonde-haired prince, Kamut, bluntly apologizes for his previous behavior. A mysterious golden patterned boot steps forward on the light blue marble floor as a new revelation begins. A floating thought bubble reveals how deeply her affection for his beautiful blonde hair truly runs. Standing over the sitting black-haired maiden, Kamut resolves to take excellent care of his appearance to keep her captivated. Surrounded by blooming pink flowers, the blonde prince tenderly leans down to declare his devotion to his precious Reinel. Reinel's breath hitches and her face flushes a deep crimson at his incredibly smooth and romantic gesture. Completely overwhelmed, she suddenly transforms back into a black crow, leaving Kamut laughing warmly at her adorable panic. Solitary confirmation floats in the air, solidifying her deep feelings of connection to the charming prince. Kamut playfully teases her lingering shyness as she internally admits how precious he has truly become to her. The flustered black crow hides her head, completely embarrassed by how easily the blonde prince makes her blush. Carrying his beloved crow on his arm, Kamut walks toward the grand halls, fully aware of the heavy duties ahead. The reality of his ascension looms, warning that a bird of death could ruin the future emperor's public image. Inside the quiet, luxurious study, Prince Kamut sits in deep frustration while his loyal knight Galeno stands guard. The blonde prince rests his chin on his hands, admitting to his trusted knight that a massive problem is troubling him. Galenos, the orange-haired knight with an eye patch, is left completely flabbergasted that the mighty prince is actually stressed. Kamut confesses his deep struggle to find a clear answer to a highly complex personal dilemma. Galenos tries to comfort him, pointing out that the current political atmosphere in the palace is heavily in their favor. He recalls how Marquis Wilhelm used to be the absolute mainstay and primary backer of the rival Llewellyn faction. Since the Marquis fell from grace, the neutral nobles are eagerly trying to figure out Kamut's true plans. Despite the positive political landscape, Prince Kamut remains slumped over his desk, thoroughly plagued by his secret anxiety. Seeing his master so defeated, Galeno steals his resolve, suspecting an incredibly dangerous threat is looming in the shadows. The loyal orange-haired knight confidently draws his golden hilt sword, begging the prince to share his burden. He invokes his sacred duty as the ultimate shield and sword dedicated to protecting the future emperor. Galenos raises his glowing blade high, dramatically vowing to lay down his life to resolve whatever threat plagues his lord. The blonde prince looks up with a deadpan stare, casually revealing that his massive worry is simply that Reinel didn't follow him today. Galenos freezes in absolute shock like a blank mannequin with his sword raised, realizing he just prepared for war over a pet crow. A flashback, a cheerful human Reinel waves goodbye, stating she prefers to lazily stay in her room today. Kamut nervously wonders if he did something wrong to upset her, while his exasperated knight quietly sweats in disbelief. Meanwhile, a fancy wine-sipping crow in a purple hat maliciously celebrates making the powerful prince panic so easily. The knight's internal rage boils over as he imagines the wicked bird dramatically swooning over his suffering master. Galenos bitterly complains that they should have never saved that troublesome bird from the underground ruins in the first place. The scarred, orange-haired knight glares with intense eyes, realizing it is too late to undo his past decisions. He determines that the only way forward is to aggressively ignore and forget about the existence of that chaotic bird. Galenos honestly tells Kamut that his anxiety stems entirely from lacking his beloved pet bird on his shoulder. He admits he can never truly understand animal logic, but insists his role is to fill the prince's emotional void. Surrounded by dramatic, fiery passion, the overzealous knight violently offers to cut off his own finger or tear out his heart to prove his loyalty. As Galeno screams his dramatic demands, a completely exhausted Kamut casually tells his overly dramatic knight to just leave. Outside, the busy castle maids chatter as they carry baskets and replace the old palace decor to prepare for a new era. Peeking over the edge of a tall wooden cabinet, the black crow observes the bustling staff working tirelessly. The isolated blackbird sighs deeply, wishing she had some exciting task to occupy her boring gay. She curls up in a ball on the cabinet, accepting that she must endure the absolute boredom of her lonely room. Meanwhile, she recalls the memory of the disgraced Marquis Wilhelm kneeling in total defeat before Prince Kamut. The prince's strategic decision to spare him is guaranteed to throw the rival faction into absolute disarray. The footsteps of multiple neutral nobles echo as they prepare to pledge their allegiance to the rising golden prince. On a magnificent golden throne, Kamut reigns supreme with the black crow on his shoulder, though dark, thorny shadows threaten their peace. Sharp, ominous gray thorns crawl beneath the throne, signaling a dangerous path ahead for the future emperor. In a quick flashback, the prince remembers the eccentric allies he has met along his journey so far. He recalls the cold, annoyed glances of suspicious men who once watched him with profound hostility. Even the fallen Marquis Wilhelm's glaring eyes flash in his memory, a silent warning that the battle for the throne is far from over. Behind the palace's gilded walls, a dark conspiracy unfolds as Reinel recognizes that the hostile glares surrounding the future emperor spell absolute doom. Determined to protect him, the Black Crow quietly slips into the shadows to take action. She resolves to keep her distance from the prince until she can find a safer way to help. With a swift beat of her wings, Reinel takes flight from her perch. Boredom quickly strikes the restless crow as she desperately searches for something useful to do. She decides to pass the time by keeping a close watch on the palace staff. Realizing her lack of spy skills makes tracking hidden enemies nearly impossible, she doubts her own plan. Suddenly, a strong crow instinct flares up, demanding she find something bright and shiny to lift her mood. Her base bird instincts completely take over, leaving the crow dazed and drooling on the spot. She spots a gorgeous arrangement of blue roses, a perfect target for her greedy crow desires. The unsuspecting maid gasps in surprise as a shower of dark feathers suddenly rains down. Flying with elegant grace, the black crow swoops down to present the maid with a stolen flower. The terrified maid screams in absolute horror at the sudden, ominous approach of the crow. In a panic, she desperately wonders why the prince's famous pet bird chose to roam.
She realizes she cannot even shoo the troublesome creature away because of its royal status.
Overwhelmed by dramatic terror, the servant breaks down, begging for mercy from the dark bird. The majestic blue rose is gently dropped into the trembling maid's hands. The maid is utterly bewildered as the crow nods proudly, confirming the gift is meant for her. Slowly calming down, she sheepishly accepts the beautiful and unexpectedly generous gift. A sudden voice interrupts the quiet moment, questioning why Renelle is gifting flowers to a servant. Kamut warmly reassures the maid, telling her to keep the roses since his beloved crow likes her. The poor servant panics even more, realizing the flowers worth more than her entire salary. The generous prince casually brushes off the expense, encouraging her to keep working hard. Deeply moved, the pink-haired maid eagerly bows and pledges her complete dedication. She humbly reminds herself that she is simply performing her daily duties. She marvels at how a noble ruler would show such incredible kindness to a lowly servant. Walking down the grand palace hall, she feels like she is living in an impossible dream. Looking closely at the shimmering blue petals, her admiration for the prince and his crow deepens. She reflects on the name of the prince's legendary companion, Reinel. She can't help but contrast Kamut's warm, noble heart with his ruthless political rival. Under the grand palace arches, she treasures her new emblem of royal favor. Back in their private chambers, Kamut teasingly questions Reinel about her sudden friendliness with the maid, sending her into a comical panic. Reinel sadly admits she stayed away because she didn't want her presence as a bird of death to ruin his political standing. Kamut's expression softens with deep affection as he understands her selfless concern. She playfully recalls how even Kamut once feared her dramatic, chaotic antics in the forest. A hilarious memory of her aggressive crow attacks brings a sudden burst of laughter to the room. She explains her simple hope that showing a little kindness would eventually make others see her in a positive light. Kamut looks at her with a gentle gaze, completely disarmed by her pure, innocent heart. He softly calls out her name, his voice filled with overwhelming warmth. In a stunningly romantic gesture, the future emperor drops to his knees to take her hand in his. He declares that anyone foolish enough to avoid her does not deserve to be in their presence. His grip tightens gently, offering her unwavering protection against the harsh judgments of the world. Pressing her palm tenderly against his cheek, he begs her never to run away or hide from him again. He passionately promises to shower her with every glistening treasure in his entire treasury. From the finest delicacies to the most luxurious comforts, he vows to fulfill her every whim desire. He gazes deep into her shimmering eyes, urging her to speak her heart's truest desires. Reinel's heart hammers wildly as a massive blush completely colors her face at his intense devotion. Breathless and overwhelmed, she struggles to find the words to respond to his grand declaration. Suddenly, her primitive crow instincts violently short-circuit her brain, sending her into a chaotic panic. The Golden Prince is left completely flabbergasted as his romantic moment is hilariously ruined by her wild, uncontrollable bird squawks. What will he do to tame this chaotic crow next? In a sudden panic, the chaotic black crow struggles to process the sheer intensity of the prince's romantic gesture, screaming internally in disbelief. Prince Kamut looks on with a soft, pleading gaze, gently asking her not to run away or hide from him again. Suddenly, the screen flashes with a human mode notification, and a flustered Renelle materializes in her human form, while Kamut holds her hands close. The Golden Prince reflects on his own selfishness, acknowledging that she was born and raised as a wild crow in the forest. He realizes it is only natural for a wild crow to seek out a feathered mate of her own kind. Plagued by possessive jealousy, Kamut hilariously imagines choking out rival crows or hosting an elite crow matchmaking competition to secure her affection. Gently raising his hand in the soft, glowing light, the prince prepares to lay his heart on the line. Kneeling before her with absolute devotion, he begs Reinel to tell him if she truly desires a companion. He gazes deep into her purple eyes, promising to be her partner as long as she can take human form. Under a shower of falling petals, the two lean in close, suspended in a breathtakingly romantic moment. They remain frozen in an intimate, heart-pounding silence as the sheer gravity of his words hangs in the air. Reinel's face erupts into a crimson blush, completely overwhelmed by the prince's intense declaration. Her wild bird instincts completely short-circuit, throwing her inner mind into a chaotic, heavy metal crow frenzy. Terrified that her primitive bird brain will make her say something incredibly embarrassing, she frantically plans her escape. Declaring an immediate tactical retreat, Reinel bursts into a cloud of magical smoke and feathers to flee the room. Left holding nothing but thin air, the blonde prince sits on the floor, trembling in absolute disbelief. Stunned silence is broken as Kamut bursts into joyous, hearty laughter at her hilariously chaotic reaction. He looks up to find her hiding on the grand golden chandelier, playfully teasing her for being so incredibly shy. Nestled safely among the glittering crystals, the embarrassed crow fumes silently, cursing her lack of dating experience. Chuckling warmly, the prince promises himself that he will find a way to fluster her even more in the future. His gaze softens as he reflects on how being around Reinel makes him completely forget his immense royal burdens. Dramatic imagery of a falling golden crown and scattered noble shoes illustrates the brutal, relentless struggle for the imperial throne. Surrounded by sharp, creeping thorns and pools of blood, the memory of his past suffering highlights his deep-seated fear of betrayal and death. Yet, simply holding Reinel's hand and looking at her pure, uncalculated smile completely washes away his darkness. Her radiant smile, shining bright like the night sky, becomes his ultimate sanctuary in a hostile world. In a stunning decorative portrait framed by purple flowers, Kamut finds true peace resting against his dark-winged savior. He realizes she willingly gave up the freedom of the vast sky to stay by his side and guide him toward his future. Clutching his collar with a warm, gentle smile, the blonde prince resolves to cherish her above all else. Turning his head, Kamut spots his chaotic companion still perched high on the chandelier, keeping her distance. With a swift, rustling turn, the black crow settles comfortably into her glittering refuge. Looking back down, Kamut silently vows to eradicate every looming threat before him to ensure her absolute safety. The scene gently transitions as magical sparkles fade from her trailing lace gown. The passage of time is marked by a grandfather clock standing quietly in the corner of the royal office. A towering stack of imperial paperwork sits on the desk, waiting for the prince's return. A brief narrative thought reveals that Reinel ultimately succumbed to Comet's persistent persuasion and followed him to the office. The blonde prince works diligently at his desk while his loyal companion keeps him company in her crow form. The black crow shakes her head in exasperation, realizing she couldn't resist his desire to be together. Boredom quickly strikes, prompting the restless bird to scout out the grand office while the prince is busy. Comparing the room to previous days, she notices a subtle but glamorous change in the office decor. A sense of unease washes over her as her sharp instincts warn her that something is highly unusual. She recalls that while bedroom updates are normal, changing the decor of the heavily secured royal office is unprecedented. Looking at the exhausted prince buried behind literal mountains of paperwork, she doubts he had any time to order new decorations. Imagining a classic romantic fantasy trope, Reinel suspects a hidden plot is slowly unfolding right under their noses. Knowing the loyal knight Galenos is guarding the door, she decides to quietly ask Kamut about the mysterious vase. Transforming back into her human form behind a stack of books, she cautiously whispers her question to the busy prince. Kamut stops writing, looking completely bewildered as he realizes he knows nothing about any new office decorations. The focus shifts to the elegant blue and white porcelain vase standing innocently on the wooden dresser. Approaching the suspicious item with Reinel on his shoulder, the prince officially confirms he never ordered it to be placed here. Recognizing the severe security breach, Kamut immediately summons his loyal knight Galenos into the room. With a deadly serious expression, the prince commands his knight to bring the influential Marquis Namuel to him at once, setting the stage for a tense confrontation. An immediate high-stakes investigation begins as a silver-haired noble hovers his hand over the suspicious blue and white vase, casting a revealing spell to uncover its hidden secrets. Glowing runic arrays erupt into the air as Marquis Namuel channels his formidable magic to scan the foreign object for concealed threats. The investigation yields immediate results as the silver-haired mage extracts a glowing blue sphere, identifying it as a hidden surveillance device meant to spy on the crown. Galenos stands completely dumbfounded by the terrifying security breach, while the elder mage explains that this magic tool is designed to visually record their every move. Talk about a royal livestream nobody subscribed to. Floating in the air, the glowing magical blueprints reveal the terrifying potential of a device designed solely to exploit the prince's fatal weaknesses. While Marquis Namuel admits he knows exactly which political rival ordered the espionage, he warns Prince Kamut that an even graver issue lies hidden beneath the surface. The Elder Mage explains that the spy device was layered with highly advanced illusion and cognitive impairment magic, completely blinding the elite knight Galenos to its presence. Holding the tainted vase, the Marquis grimly concludes that a powerful rogue master mage must have directly aided their enemies in executing this silent infiltration. A hemi-suffocating dread fills the room as Marquis Namuel delivers his final shocking revelation: the enemy sorcerer's dark magic completely surpasses his own.